Hello there, and welcome back to my channel, Subscription Boxes and More with Michelle. And if this is your first time here, hello. I sure hope it won't be your last. And you're probably going to see cats coming and going. That's what we do here. What am I here to share with you today? Well, guys, it is something from History by Mail. Now, I've done letters from History by Mail on my channel already. This is something else. And here it is in this package. Let's open it up and see what it is. Somebody's already started to. My package was already open. I thought I had to cut it open and somebody had already untaped it. Sometimes I think my mail carrier is nosy. Alright, let's see what we got. What does the letter say? Let's start with that. And as you can see, it's History by Mail. See that right there? Alright, let's see what it says. Dear Michelle, thank you for taking the time to review historic cartoons for a YouTube unboxing video. Enclosed is a set of 50 historic cartoons in a plastic keepsake box. Inside the box are over 200 years of historic cartoons. These 50 cards touch upon major moments in American history from the colonial period through the civil rights era. Each card is printed on high-quality cardstock in the original color and style. On the reverse side of each cartoon is a full description of the historical context and an explanation of the images. Enjoy your tour through history in a novel and entertaining way. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to the opportunity to work with you, or to work together. Ari Siegel, I think that's how you say it, founder. Well, here is the plastic case. Tell me this isn't nice. Historic cartoons. So let me get it closer to you so you can see it. Okay, well, I'm excited to get started. A really nice, case here with a latch. And it holds really nicely. That's gonna hold these for years to come. I'm gonna share these with my grandchildren, obviously, because I think that they will enjoy them. Let's find out. There's how many, it's like a stack. They are really shrink wrapped together, so we're serious about keeping them nice and neat. Over 200 years of historic cartoons, 50 cards, that's what that says. Let's see what it says on the back. Take my glasses off. Welcome. You are about to embark on a novel and an entertaining tour through history. Enclosed are 50 cards covering over 200 years of major moments in American history from the colonial period through the civil rights era. Well, that's what we just read in the letter. Our team of historians have carefully selected cartoons covering a wide range of historical topics. On the reverse side of each faithfully recreated cartoon, we have provided an in-depth analysis of each image and how it relates to its historical context. The enclosed cartoons are arranged chronologically, yet they may be read in any order. Political cartoons originated in England in the 17th century and continued to develop in the United States, first in magazines and then in newspapers. The term cartoon originated in the Middle Ages and referred to a preparatory drawing of an art piece. In the 19th century, the term came to mean humorous illustrations, and the term has since expanded to include comic strips and animations. Political cartoons are a unique visual art form using caricatures to convey editorial commentary on politics, social issues, and current events. As an opinion-based medium, political cartoons can be found in the editorial pages of major newspapers and are an integral component of exercising the freedoms of speech and press. Cartoonists use metaphor, personification, exaggeration, symbolism, and satire to convey their messages. Political cartoons are a unique communication medium as images can convey various complex ideas in a compelling and entertaining way. We wish you happy learning, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us by visiting www.historiccartoons.com. And historic has a capital H and cartoons has a capital C. That's that, and let's start at the beginning, shall we? Now, we will not be looking at all 50 cards. That would be unfair to the folks there at History by Mail, because then what would be the point of you purchasing these cards? So let's look at the first one. They're saying they're in chronological order. This one says Join or Die, and it has a snake that is cut up into segments, and each segment has like NE, NY, NJ, P, M, V, NC, and SC, so I'm assuming it is for like the colonies or states or whatever. Let's read and find out. Join or Die, May 9th, 1754, Benjamin Franklin, Pennsylvania Gazette. Okay, now that, let me get my glasses. It tells you across the top what it was, who, and when, and what publication, all across the top here. And then it tells you about it. Okay. The reverse cartoon appeared alongside an editorial by Benjamin Franklin about the disunity of the American colonies during the French and Indian War. Benjamin Franklin was the publisher of the Pennsylvania Gazette and a delegate to the Albany Congress, where colonies met to discuss the threat of the French. Franklin feared the divided colonies with different governments and assemblies could easily be captured by the French. The cartoon and article soon appeared in other colonial papers. Join or Die is a word cut showing a snake cut in eighths, each segment representing an American colony or region. New England's 4 colonies are represented by a single segment. Delaware was then part of Pennsylvania, and Georgia was not included. The other of the snake's segments roughly follows the geographic order of the colonies along the Atlantic coastline. The poster quickly became a symbol for organized action against the threat posed by the French during the conflict. While many Americans were unwilling to participate in combat, many more recognized that if the French colonies were not captured, they would always pose a risk to the well-being and security of the 13 colonies. During the American Revolutionary War, the cartoon was repurposed to encourage unity against British rule, sometimes altering the title to Unite or Die. On July 7th, 1774, Revolutionary War patriot Paul Revere modified Franklin's snake cartoon to fit the masthead of the Boston newspaper Massachusetts Spy. Both the Union and Confederate sides used the cartoon during the Civil War. Join or Die is one of the earliest known and most influential political cartoons in American history. Now, something that I want to mention about History by Mail is that this is a really good way of introducing your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whoever, neighbor kid down the street, to history in a way that is in more bite-sized doses, but also in a way that I feel, and I am someone who really has a hard time enjoying history. I don't. I was never good at history in school because it was so dry and so boring. And this History by Mail, if you've got a kiddo in your life that struggles to find an interest in history, you may find that History by Mail is a nice way of introducing them to something that is otherwise not so easy to swallow. I really enjoyed the History by Mail letters, and I already one card in, and I am enjoying these cartoons. So regardless, let's go on to card number 2. As I said, I am not going to read through all of them. I'll probably read the first 2 and then flip in and find some different ones to share with you. So let's look at this one up closer. Unlike the, well, let's get the snake one up close too, just so we can make sure you saw it. Okay, now here is this one. Okay. All right, what's this one called? Let's take off our glasses and find out. It's pretty bad when you have to take off your glasses to be able to read. And they're bifocals, so I shouldn't have to do that. The Bostonians paying the excise man, or tarring and feathering. October 31st, 1774, Philip D-A-W-E, however you pronounce that. This print is attributed to British engraver Philip, I'm going to say Dow, but it may be wrong, and published in 1774 by Robert Sayer and John Bennett. Sayer and Bennett ran one of the largest publishing businesses in London in the late 1700s, depicted in the tarring and feathering of the Boston Commissioner of Customs, John Malcolm. Due to Britain's massive debts from the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, Great Britain expected the American colonies to help pay their debt through taxes as payment for Britain's protection. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," expressed a primary grievance of the American colonists. Without representation in British Parliament, taxes imposed upon them violated their rights. John Malcolm enforced the 3-pence tea act tax on American colonists with zeal. On December 16, 1773, American colonists protested a tax on imported tea by dumping it into Boston Harbor. 4 weeks later, Malcolm was seen threatening to strike a boy with a cane, and a man who intervened was caned by Malcolm. That night, a crowd dragged Malcolm from his house and tarred and feathered him. The crowd threatened to hang him, forced him to drink tea, and to mock the King of England. These events were depicted in this early political cartoon that was published in newspapers in England and the American colonies. In the print, Malcolm is depicted being tarred and feathered while having hot tea poured down his throat, a noose hanging around the Liberty Tree, a symbol of resistance against the British. In the background, men aboard a ship are dumping tea overboard. The tarring occurred after the tea party. Tarring and feathering was a practice of public humiliation and warning, stopping just short of a serious bodily harm. In an era before photographers, political cartoons printed in newspapers helped shape public opinion. Okay, so here we see clearly that it says Liberty Tree here. There's a noose hanging from the tree. They are forcing the hot tea down his throat. The ship is in the background where they're pouring the tea overboard. Yeah, hopefully you can see all that. And see, now we have learned about the taxation without representation issue that was happening during that time, where Britain expected the colonies to pay those taxes even though they weren't being represented in Parliament. And we're seeing that there was a whole lot going on during that time besides just dumping some tea into the harbor. And it explains the how and the why and the when, and again, it's a bite-sized portion that kids can usually attune to. If you're reading this to them, they can listen for a few minutes and they've learned a bit of history. Now these are good for adults, they're not just for children, obviously, but I'm just mentioning that because I have a couple of grandchildren who are being homeschooled, one in Ohio and one here in Missouri, and I know that these will come in handy. I'm going to, when I'm finished reading them, I'm going to pass them to the grandchild in here in Missouri, to study some history, and then, like I did the letters, and then send them on from there to Ohio for my grandchild there to do some learning of history. And they really enjoyed the letters, and so I know they will really enjoy these as well. So let's dig in a little deeper into history here. I'm going to keep them in order. Not that they have to be in order, but I want to keep them in order. So here we have a guy who looks like he's riding on a cannon, or he's part cannon himself, and it says a war president, progressive democracy. And let's read about it. A war president, progressive democracy, 1848, Nathaniel Currier. The reverse cartoon, created in the presidential election year of 1848, depicts Democratic candidate and War of 1812 General Lewis Cass as a war machine sitting on a gun carriage. Cass is illustrated with munitions as limbs and holding a spear in his left hand. In his right hand is a bloody saber labeled Manifest Destiny, which is something that we learned in history about, right? Manifest Destiny. A reference to the popular 19th century belief that U.S. territory should expand to the Pacific Ocean. Clouds of smoke emerged from Cass's stomach, arms, and legs, a reference to his disparaging nickname General Gas for his militaristic leanings. In February 1848, America concluded fighting the nearly 2-year Mexican-American War, claiming ownership of large parts of California, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. The cartoonist suggests that Cass's military enthusiasm would drag America into another war, and Cass is depicted listing the names of areas he wishes to conquer. As Secretary of War for Andrew Jackson, Cass, which we may or may not have learned, I didn't know that he was the Secretary of War for Andrew Jackson. Cass implemented the policy of Indian removal from ancestral lands to reservations. And as a Michigan senator, Cass advocated for war with England if they refused to allow American annexation of southern Oregon country. Sorry, there's a cat distracting me. Cass believed in popular sovereignty, the doctrine that citizens in each territory should decide whether to permit slavery. This position aligned the anti-slavery wing of the Democratic Party and led to a party split in the 1848 election. General Zachary Taylor of the Whig Party defeated Cass in a close election where each carried 15 states. Taylor died 16 months after taking office and was succeeded by his vice president, Millard Fillmore. The 1848 election was the first presidential election that took place on the same day in every state. See, there's just little tidbits of news and history that these cards are providing that you may not otherwise learn in history or may not stand out to you in your history books. And so let's go on to a different one. I'm going to do maybe 2 more. First of all, let's have introductions, shall we? This live wire, come here, little girl. Her name is Orlean. Orlean because she came from New Orleans, and she is my mom's new baby, my mom's only little baby, besides me, of course. Let's see. Down in the pile farther. Let's see what this one is. Because I see this one has Uncle Sam. Let's look at Uncle Sam. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Trying to keep a cat from getting under me. And of course she got under me. Trying not to sit on her. Alright, let's see what this one says. Uncle Sam becomes democracy's arsenal. September 2nd, 1940, Clifford K. Berryman, Washington Evening Star. The reverse cartoon, published on Labor Day 1940, depicts the American effort to ramp up defense production to support the Allied powers in WW2. The cartoon was published during the nearly 4-month Battle of Britain, where Great Britain defended itself against air and sea raids from Germany. Though the U.S. was not at war, many believed America would be drawn into the conflict, and the country lacked the military personnel and materials to fight effectively. The reverse cartoon was published 5 days after the Senate passed the Selective Training and Service Act of 1940. The act created the first peacetime draft in American history. President Roosevelt next turned his efforts to producing the resources to support the Allied militaries. 1 month after winning an unprecedented third term on the platform of keeping America out of war, Roosevelt addressed the nation in a fireside chat radio broadcast. He said that America must become the arsenal of democracy to support the Allied powers against tyranny. The Lend-Lease Act, passed in March 1941, authorized the U.S. government to lend or lease war supplies to Allied nations. By not officially selling supplies, America remained technically neutral in WW2 until the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. The government coordinated the transition of manufacturing of cars, planes, and other factories to wartime needs and produced 93,000 ships and millions of trucks, guns, and rounds of ammunition. Labor Day was created in 1894 to celebrate the achievement of laborers in developing the U.S. See, I didn't know. In the cartoon, Uncle Sam comically suggests every day will be Labor Day from now on, referring to the massive amount of labor needed to provide weaponry for the Allies. Uncle Sam is depicted beating plowshares into swords, reversing the biblical verse Isaiah 2:4 that predicts nations will beat their swords into plowshares. Once peace has been achieved, in the background, a bear tests out the new swords, showing the cartoonist's support to provide supplies to the Allied forces. After President Teddy Roosevelt's term of office, cartoonist Clifford Berryman repurposed the bear character to symbolize his own viewpoint. The poster of the 1940 model sword in the background represents technologically advanced modern American weaponry. Whew. One last one. Let's read the very last one. Hello, Miss Orlean. Let's not get my scissors. It says racial accord, extremists, bombs, riots. And it's got a rose, and the scissors are cutting the rose. Okay. See when this was. A flower tries to grow in Birmingham, May 14th, 1963. James T. Berryman, Washington Evening Star. On April 3rd, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr., MLK, and other civil rights leaders launched the Birmingham Campaign, a series of nonviolent marches and sit-ins to bring attention to the efforts to desegregate public facilities in Birmingham, Alabama. On April 12, 1963, MLK was arrested and 4 days later wrote his famous Letters from Birmingham Jail, detailing his case against segregation and writing, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Wow, what a quote. The Birmingham Campaign continued, and on May 3rd, 1963, City Public Safety Commissioner Eugene Bull Connor directed local police and fire departments to use force to stop the demonstrations. Men, women, and children were arrested and attacked with tear gas, fire hoses, and attack dogs. Media images of the brutality shocked people around the world. On May 10th, MLK and Pastor Fred Shuttlesworth announced an agreement with Birmingham city officials to desegregate public areas within 90 days. Violence erupted the next day, and bombings and violent attacks from the KKK and others. The reverse cartoon published during this violence depicts the hope of the civil rights movement as a delicate rose labeled racial accord. A hand marked extremist holds scissors with blades marked bombs and riots and threatens to cut the delicate flower. Violence continued, and on September 15th, 4 African American girls were killed in a bombing at the 16th Street Baptist Church. The momentum created by the acts of violence, protests, media displays, and subsequent 250,000-person march on Washington in August created a climate for change. In the subsequent 2 years, 2 landmark pieces of legislation provided significant advancement for civil rights movement. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, and ended segregation in schools, employment, and public facilities. And the Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibited racial discrimination in voting. So there you go. Very important things, but they don't feel very good to have to read about that we had such a history. But History by Mail monthly historic replica subscription. How did Albert Einstein communicate with President Roosevelt about the atomic bomb? How did the Queen of Hawaii protest America's annexation of the islands? Things like that. It says, learn directly from history through replicas of historic letters. That's what I had read before on my channel. Read for yourself in the original words and handwritings what the people who shaped our history had to say about the events and topics of their times. Curated from the world's best archives, each document accompanied by context pages. Themes include historic inventions, American wars, and diplomacy. Use promo code CARTOONS for 10% off any purchase at www.historybymail.com. So guys, again, I urge you to purchase those letters and these cards for anyone who is a history buff in your family or just wants to know more about history. Or, as I said, for kids who, school-age kids, college-age kids, whatever, homeschooled kids, or just for yourself. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I do not like to learn about history. However, I like learning about history through the products from History by Mail. And if I like History by Mail, anybody will like History by Mail. I promise you that I don't like history from history books. But I do enjoy the History by Mail items. So tell me, what do you think? And do you get anything from History by Mail? Had you ever heard of History by Mail? And well, let's just talk about it. How do you feel about it? Let's just talk about it. And if you don't mind, while you're down there leaving a comment, or even if you don't leave a comment, could you please just give me that thumbs up if you enjoyed my video? And could you please subscribe and please share my video with others so that maybe they might subscribe as well. And they may never have heard of History by Mail, and maybe they would enjoy getting these items, or maybe they know somebody who could benefit from them. Anybody could benefit from them, because as they say, if we don't learn about history, well, then we're doomed to repeat it. And who wants to repeat any of that? So guys, I would like to thank History by Mail for sending me those cards over for review for you, and I hope that you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching and for listening to me babble. And I'll see you again in a minute in another video. Bye guys.